Conversations That Matter is a partner program for the Center for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you.
Welcome. Thank you for joining me. We live in a very interesting country. We are a collection of peoples from around the world. I remember a number of years ago when Jean Chrétien was the Prime Minister. He was just down the street from here at the dedication of the China Gate. And he said, "We have opened our arms to the people of the world and said, come and join us in the building of a truly blessed nation." And we've done a pretty good job. Yeah. But we could do a lot better, couldn't we, in understanding one another and working towards common goals. What's the biggest challenge that we face when we want to integrate cultures?
Well, first, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. I think one of the many challenges is that we are not aware of our own culture, our own blueprint. We don't know who we are. And so
yes.
I think that's the biggest barrier. And because we don't know who we are or what is our culture, then we go to either praise or criticize the culture of the different others. So I think that's one of the barriers. The other one I think is because we don't know who we are internally in a cultural blueprint, then we don't know what to ask ourselves, what to think, what to question. Why do I do what I do this way? We're not even aware. We go into our own automatic pilot, so to speak.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Because if you ask somebody to define what does it mean to be a Canadian, everybody has trouble doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem because we're unable to understand even what our own motivations are, is it not?
Yes, in a way, but I think it goes even deeper. It goes into being very aware of what are your values and your beliefs, because that will set the foundation to what you do, why you do it, and how you do it. Otherwise, if you're not aware of that, you're just operating in that automatic pilot and you don't know. So maybe, for example, the way that I greeted you is not the way that you have been used to greeting people. And so you say, well, that was weird. Why did she say that? Maybe that was my natural way of doing. Or saying, good morning.
But that's really the tip of the iceberg. It's not just what you've said, but why you said it and what led you to do that. And how do we start to figure that out about ourselves first and then about others if we want to learn how to get along in a way that truly does take race out of the equation? Or can you?
But why would you take race out of the equation? I think that's one of the issues, Look at me. I'm not the same skin color as you are.
No.
So
you've got darker skin.
Darker skin. So
yeah.
Yes, I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be okay on being different. We have some commonalities. You look at the Maslow hierarchy. Yes, there are some things that are common ground for absolutely everybody. But that doesn't mean that we're all the same. A heart is a heart. Doesn't matter in what body it is put in. So when you compare organ to organ, we're the same. However, your body is different than mine on the in and the outside, primarily the outside, because most of the markers that come to identify these things come on the outside. So if I'm not comfortable looking at you on the outside and says, yes, you're darker, you're clearer, you're this, you're that, then how would I get even more comfortable talking about things that are even below the iceberg?
Right. So when I say take race out of the equation, I mean remove it as a barrier to be able to understand and interact with one another. What I'm hearing you say is, well, part of that barrier is not acknowledging that race exists.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this morning I was just reading something in the newspaper, Global Mail, I believe. Anyway, it's in a newspaper, and this was I believe it was a Chinese commercial for a detergent. So this Chinese lady is having this conversation with this very attractive, good-looking black man. And all of a sudden, she touches the dishwasher detergent, push the man into the dishwasher machine. The machine starts coming, doing the thing, and the person that comes up is a Chinese man. And so it's a perfect detergent because he cleaned out the person.
That was the commercial?
That was the commercial. So why, removing the race is exactly the opposite. It should not be removed. We should feel comfortable with race, with
Okay, what does that,
ethnicity.
if I start to feel comfortable with the fact that you are different than I am, how does that free me up? What does it allow me to do that I can't do if that is a barrier?
It allowed me to trust you more.
It allows, so if I openly acknowledge that you are different, how does that allow you to trust me more?
Because then I say, okay, oh, so you've noticed the difference. What about the differences that you have, noticed about me particularly? Was it my accent?
Yes, I picked up on that.
Okay, so
I have to work a little harder to hear you, to
Yeah.
understand you, because you say words differently than I do.
Yeah, exactly that. I said, and have you ever thought or imagined how difficult it is for me to understand you and my other colleague from South Africa and a British colleague, which is the accent that I have the most difficulty with?
I don't think about it, but every now and then I marvel at people who can do it because I can't do it.
But you see that it's even appreciating those auditory differences, and then we can have a more interesting conversation that matter. To say, why is language the way it is for you? What did you mean when you say that? Because it goes, language is something, but the differences are beyond a linguistic problem. And that's where the interesting part comes.
So tell me about that. What makes that so interesting?
Okay, let me tell you about an example. I was just finishing a project, and the project got inspired in the Mount Poly issue that happened August in 2014.
Right, the breach of the tailings pond.
The tailings pond, exactly. Yeah. And so I, started looking back and reading all the media coverage from the government, from the industry, and from the First Nations. And all of a sudden, there it was in front of me. They were talking about the same incident. They were the language. I mean, purely on the words that they use, how they describe the incident was like, whoa, I cannot believe we're talking about the same issue with some different perspectives. So I said, okay, let's dig deeper into that. And then I went and looked into the theoretical cultural frameworks that explain difference in values and relationships between people and nature. Okay. And then let's go and test it a bit further and have a conversation with each of these different people to see, so what does that mean for you? And so what was fascinating from that exercise is that they all care about the environment. They care about the environment. They want to protect.
Government, industry, First Nations all say we care about the environment.
Yeah, they care about the environment. But so how the dominant culture care about the environment, and dominant culture, I mean the industry and the government, they were talking about the environment from when you dig deeper into asking more questions and going under the iceberg. They care about the environment because they were able to control Mother Nature.
I got to get you to hang on for just 1 second while we take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Well, they see their responsibility to be stewards of the land and everything that's on it.
Exactly.
And under it, yeah.
So when they were talking about taking care of the environment, they were talking about taking care of the environment on the controlling issue. We master nature. Man has domain over nature.
So we master it.
We master nature. When First Nations were talking about the environment and how much they care about them, they were referring about the environment because they are one with nature. They are one with the water, one with the birds, one with the air. It's one. Fundamental, huge different value system about the same issue, the environment. So when we're having a conversation, it seems that everybody's caring about the same thing, but they're carrying it in a very different way. So when an incident like this happens, we have conversations that are going this way. We don't understand one another. And the more heated the argument gets, there's going to be more friction. And eventually, the friction will get to a point of no more resistance, and you get a damage in the relationship because you're not hearing what I'm saying. And it appears that you are because you care about the same thing I'm caring, but you care with a different value about it. And so we don't really understand each other.
Okay, so then how do we move to a point where we can start to appreciate one another's values? How do we get there?
Asking questions. It's something that I call, because the fact that we are cohabitating, living together, or Canadians are working with First Nations for years and years, a lot of people are really good at this and they understand one another, but many people are not, because proximity doesn't make you competent to understand the other, how the other see their world. So what I refer to this is...
So proximity doesn't make you competent to understand the other's world.
Yeah.
Just the fact that you're observing it isn't enough.
It's not enough. Because then if I only take my observations from my own perspective and I don't check with you, so I'm observing this, what did you see?
I saw you move the cup.
Okay. Why do you think I moved the cup?
Well, because you wanted to set an example. You wanted to show me an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I'm getting. Maybe I move the cup because I know that I do a lot of movement in my hands when I talk, and I was going to spill the water. But it could be because, I'm not thirsty and I just don't want to drink the water. So what moves me to do what I do, or say what I do, or anybody for that matter to do, are different motivations, different interests.
Right. So earlier you talked about the dominant culture.
Yeah.
And the dominant culture has a habit or a tendency to say, okay, but you have to fit into my way of life.
Yeah.
So you figure out how I do it and get over to this side of the equation. That's fraught with problems.
Yes, obviously, because then I have to fit into your world. And so I can say exactly, it's all about, the other way that you can look at this is about numbers. If the dominant culture obviously is dominant, there's more volume, you will have the pressure and the power to say, you come into my world and this is my rules and this is how you do it. And I can say yes just to have a pacific cohabitation, but that doesn't mean that I really think, these are fantastic neighbors.
Right. Somehow we figure out how to not kill one another, but
not really enjoy one another's company and really get to know the other person and have a very rich and profound conversations about what is your world, how you see it. And so one way is, what I refer it as, putting people in pressure cooker kind of pots. Those are environments that you start getting a bit more reflective, asking different kind of questions, sharing an article and, tell me what do you see in this article, or why do you like it, and then my perspective. So it's digging deeper.
So being in environments where you can't get away from one another and you have to work together, it then becomes fundamentally important to be able to figure out how to do this, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Back in 2001, I saw former U.S. President Bill Clinton here in Vancouver, and he was giving a talk, and he was talking about how Vancouver is this model of harmonious living that the rest of the world is watching. Was he right about that? Are we a model of harmonious living, or is that like nice press headlines that we like to give ourselves?
I think yes and no. I think yes, we're very harmonious, but I think it is a trait of the Canadian culture, you want to call it that way, to be nice. And so because we are nice, we don't want to ruffle around the feathers very much. We want to keep it, stable. And so we always look at, the U.S. as, look at all the problems they're having.
Yeah.
But they are not having any, their problems are not worse or better or less than ours. They're probably the same. In terms of racial issues and ethnicity, they talk more about it. We don't. So we say everything is well here. And so we give the impression that it's harmonious, but that doesn't mean that there is a cohabitation that goes to another different harmony. You can have superficial harmony and you can have really good harmony. An example of that, we were the Syrian refugees.
This is our second break. Hang on for a moment. We'll be right back.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
Partly, I think that was an exercise in our own feelings of self. Aren't we wonderful people? Look at what we've done.
Yeah.
but I don't know where it's gone from there, and I don't know how well we've made it work for them coming into the country. Shortly after they arrived, I heard people saying, you know, they're ungrateful because they're unhappy with the housing or something.
That is a fantastic example. I remember when, you know, people were talking about the housing and reading in the newspapers about it. I said, obviously that was going to happen. So
obviously, why obviously?
Canadian families are, Canada in general is an individualistic culture. Mm-hmm. And so in individualistic cultures, you look after your immediate family only. So your wife, your 2 kids, and that's it.
Yeah, the standard Canadian family.
Yeah,
these
the
days.
standard Canadian family. Other families have a more collective sense of environment. So they live with their grandparents or maybe their uncles and aunties. The majority of the world is not individualistic. The majority of the world is collectivistic. And so as soon as the Syrian immigration thing was happening, to me it was obvious those families are going to be probably, the smallest one, probably 5 people. But the average is going to be 8 to 10 maybe, you know.
The average.
It would be more people than the average Canadian family composition. Mm-hmm. So housing, it was evident that housing was going to be an issue because it's not a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment. You need a 3-4-bedroom accommodation, if not bigger than that. Even a 3-bedroom apartment is harder to find in town. Mm-hmm. So
it's very hard to find.
Most of the challenges that I think we have with this kind of issues, like the Syrian refugee crisis or any kind of cohabitation, Aboriginals and non-Aboriginals, come down to an intercultural problem that is rooted on the difference of values. And the challenges come exactly when you need to implement, because the majority of people have not been put through this pressure cooker system that you force the other people to really take a look at and define who they are. Look inside first, and then start asking the questions to their best friends, neighbors, etc. So why did you do that? You know, why do you always react that way? And then we start having a little bit of a reflection moment as, why do I do that? Mm-hmm. And then asking my friends, what do you think about that? And why is that? And you start, in that curiosity mode to really peel what's underneath. And so obviously the best intentions were, let's welcome these people, let's help them, but let's help them how we would have helped a Canadian family.
And so then when they say, thank you for the housing, but it doesn't meet my needs, our reaction is, are you ungrateful? Right. And yet they might just be expressing an actual fact.
Yeah.
It doesn't meet my needs.
Yeah, because we saw them exactly like how a Canadian family would be for mom, dad, and 2 or 3 kids. Mm-hmm. But they're not Canadians.
So
they will be.
In Vancouver, there's a tremendous increase in the Asian population and continues to grow. Pao Wu of headquarters Vancouver says we are the most Asian city outside of Asia. And those numbers are going to continue to grow. And yet I hear people say, okay, yeah, you can come here. Some people are like, there's a bit of xenophobia, there's a little bit of jealousy, especially from those who have quite a bit of money. But there's also this sense of like, okay, well, you've come here now, you're reasonably successful, you must have the same kind of social skills and sophisticated interpersonal skills that we have here. Otherwise, how could you have been successful? And yet, we'll reach out to meet some of these people, and we're almost rebuffed. Like, okay, why are you approaching me? And so you hear people going, well, don't they like me? Or why are they being rude?
Mm-hmm. But I think it takes 2 to tango in these kind of things.
Right. But as I give you that example, I'm thinking about what you just said. Maybe I don't understand why they're standoffish, why they're guarded, what are they concerned about? Because all of their issues, and I had never thought about it before, all of the issues that had guided their life to this point are completely different than the ones that have guided me to my life here.
Yeah. And maybe they're not standoffish. Maybe they're that's the way that they always react. Yeah. But because it's not the way that you have seen reaction when you approach a different other, when they approach you, we immediately say, well, they're mad, or they are not appreciative, or they don't like us, and it's not that.
This is truly fascinating, but I got to take just one last commercial break. We'll be back in a moment.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program.
So how incumbent is it upon us to ask them and to ask in a way that says, I'm willing to hear the answer?
I think just like how you're doing it, with some interest, genuine, you want to know. You want to know more about, so you can start having a very simple conversation that says, well, observe that this happened. Why is that? Because I think your attitude, the way that you approach the situation tells very much, do you really care about it? Do you really want to know because you care, or just do that chit-chat conversation and then off we go and I didn't register.
Yeah.
No.
So then in the mix, I can't help but think that the fundamental principle that you as the welcomer or the person who wants to know is that you have to be coming at these interactions from a place of respect. I respect you.
So what does respect mean to you? When somebody shows respect to you, what are the things that they do that you can say, that person respects me?
Well, number one, I don't feel like I'm being judged harshly, that I'm not having to defend myself. As a human being, you're somebody that I value, and life is a learning path for all of us. So to me, that's at the foundation of what respect is. Do I have that right?
And it's not a right or wrong.
No.
I think one of the challenges that we have with issues like respect, for example, is that respect have different meanings to different people. And so when I said, I want you to respect me, I'm talking about, how I define respect, which is different to how you define respect. And so if I don't know what respect means to you, I am obliviously disrespectful to you without even knowing that I was doing that I was offending you or not paying attention or not listening,
It's a lot of work, isn't it? So there has to be a commitment to doing the work to make sure that you understand the other.
Yes.
So you're sharing and you're receiving.
Yeah. It's work.
It is work.
But the outcome is fantastic because you have another level of relationships that you could not have with anybody else. And you get to know people and meet them and know them by who they are. You connect at a different level that you couldn't otherwise.
It's extraordinary.
Can you imagine what the world would be?
It would be a much better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A pleasure.
That's fabulous.